October of 1999, three film students went camping in the woods near Burkittsville to shoot a documentary. Heather, Josh, and Mikey never made it out. A year later, remnants of their belongings were found, including some camera footage. The Blair Witch Project is a film that has cemented itself in the annals of the horror genre. It is a film that is widely known for its marketing tactics, which actually helped it become the first found footage film that broke through with the mainstream masses and became a box office hit. A website was created to expand on the lore of the Blair Witch Project, and it was created with the intention for its visitors to take in its contents as nonfiction, and they succeeded. The website had forensic photos of the recovered equipment that belonged to the missing three. A message board was also a part of this website, where its users would go on and discuss theories surrounding the incident. Another gimmick of this marketing strategy were the missing person posters that were hung up across the United States of Heather, Mikey, and Josh. They did whatever they could to make this believable, right down to the found footage format. When it comes to the marketing of this film, I honestly believe that they had that sort of once in a lifetime type of deal. I don't think anything like it will be replicated again. And I know what you're thinking, right? Like Paranormal Activity had that sort of same buzz, but that film, the audience was along for the ride. The Blair Witch Project did much more than just have people suspend their disbelief. They were actually debating if this was real or not. The only way I can see anything coming close to it would be if maybe someone makes a found footage film and they drop it in the dark net and hope that someone discovers it and then it goes viral. But that's going to be a long shot and it's going to take a lot of luck for that to happen. And also, with the information that we're predisposed to nowadays, somebody's eventually going to connect the dots and find out that it was a film. In preparation for this review, I watched the film 5 times. Not because I needed to, but I enjoyed it that much that I just kept coming back to it. When I first watched this film, I think I was 6 years of age. Because by the time I was in pre-K, I had already watched Child's Play and Jaws. I know. What is a little child doing watching these movies? I have older siblings, so I got away with certain stuff in secrecy. And the reason I remember that I watched Child's Play and Jaws when I was in pre-K was because I was afraid to go to the restroom by myself. I thought Chucky was going to be in there ready to kill me, or that a shark was going to launch out of the toilet bowl and rip my ass apart. So instead of going to the restroom, I just made lemonade in my pants. I still remember the day my sister came home from school and she was telling me about this film she was going to get a hold of that people were saying was real footage. And even then, I remember a very, very faint questioning of how can something like this be released. But I was a kid, so all that critical thinking was just thrown out the window. But it made for a really, really fantastic viewing experience because I believed that everything that was transpiring was real. Even as a kid, I liked this film, but rewatching it today, I just have a newfound respect for it. I was curious to know if it was going to be one of those movies that when you watch as a kid, it's great, but when you're older, you realize how bad and how poorly it's aged. But I was pleasantly surprised. And prior to this viewing, I I must have watched it back in like 2016 because that's when I bought the film. But I don't remember watching it. Personally, for me, I think this movie still holds up today. However, keep in mind that this opinion is coming from someone who still gets frightened from watching The Exorcist.
Fuck this.
The reason I think this movie doesn't feel dated has to do with the fact that it's honest to its found footage format and it takes it serious. And I think that was alluded to the audience in the film in one of those wink of the eye moments. I could be wrong though, but Heather is talking about her documentary and she says how she wants to take this serious and doesn't want to make it come across as cheesy. And I feel like that parallels the film itself. I think this scene is the director's expressing to the audience, this is why this shit worked. The acting does not feel like acting at all, and that's aided by the two cameras that were used to film. It was a Hi8 and a CP16. When I said this film is honest to its found footage format, it really is. The whole movie was filmed by Josh, Heather, and Mikey. It's not like this film is simply from first person perspective. The cameras were held by them. So there's going to be scenes that are a bit jittery. It's not going to be your traditional movie. I think the decision not to include a score really helps the viewing experience and the format itself. So the acting really comes across as authentic. Like the opening shot of this movie, Heather's being filmed in her bedroom, and there's a bit of self-consciousness that's emanating from her. And it's the same self-consciousness that's present when someone unexpectedly begins to film you and you don't want to seem weird. So now there's this subconscious need to be entertaining in front of a camera. And that's present in this film. And it gives it that authentic feel that it doesn't come across as acting. Like there's this scene at the grocery store. Heather is with the camera and she's just face planting into a bag of marshmallows inside of a cart. And that's that unscripted, subconscious feeling to be entertaining when you're either filming or in front of the camera that I was talking about. The authentic feel to this film is largely due to its improvisational work. A good example of that would be the locals that were interviewed for Heather's documentary. Some of these locals were plants hired by the producers, but others were legitimate residents of Burkittsville who improvised on the spot. So this information was omitted from the cast so they could have a more raw reaction to it. There's this lady that was interviewed who improvised the whole thing. So she's telling this improvised story and she's carrying her son. And the story is about the Blair Witch. So the kid begins to get scared and he covers her mouth and tells her to stop. It just gives it that real authentic feel to it. Everyone who was interviewed for Heather's documentary felt like someone you've met before. They feel like real people. And of course, that's because some of them were, and some of them were plants. The film was shot within the span of 8 days. And each passing day, the main cast were given less and less food. So by the 6th day, they were only eating a power bar and a water, and I think a few nuts. But that was it. This actually helps them intensify their acting. Because you know how angry and flustered you can become when you're hungry. And that's the direction they're taking the characters, a descent into anger and madness. These people were actually out in the woods camping under cold weather conditions. They would get woken up in the middle of the night to film the activity with the witch. The producers were the ones who woke them up by playing recordings of children playing out of a boombox. And as the days go on, you can see the frustration and the anger just increasing in their faces. There's a scene where Mikey and Heather are arguing, and Mikey charges at Heather, and apparently Heather bit Mikey. And afterwards, Mikey felt bad about it. So there's a scene where he's apologizing to her and asking her if she's okay. And the producers mentioned in the commentary track that Mikey actually felt very sorry in that moment. This movie is about 3 film students who are shooting a documentary on the local myth of Burkittsville, known as the Blair Witch. Heather is the one who recruits Josh and Mikey to help her out with this project. She's the one that's going to be scouting them through the woods, so by default, she's the leader. The issue here is that she gets them lost. And that's where all the anger and the frustration begin. And all of this is compounded by the fact that they're being targeted by a witch at night. So as the film goes on, you begin to question, why is Heather continuing to film? Personally, I thought that her being a film student and wanting to document all of the activity occurring was justifiable enough. But then there's this scene where Josh delivers this dialogue that adds more dimension to this. So Josh grabs the camera and he's filming. And he tells Heather, I know why you keep filming. Looking at life through a camera is like seeing a filtered reality. Something along those lines. But he says that. And that's what adds this more complexity to Heather continuing to shoot. And that scene works very well because they are film students and they have the characteristics of being pretentious. And talking about pretentiousness, there's a scene at the beginning of the film where Heather is recording a monologue for her documentary and she displays that pretentiousness of a film student. It's the only moment in the film that actually feels like someone is acting, but it still feels very authentic. Like it feels like a film student recording for their project. It doesn't have that raw feeling of someone just being a person, but it does feel like someone acting for something, you know? In that monologue, Heather is talking about the deaths that took place in Burkittsville. But just like the locals who were interviewed, nobody actually knows what happened in that town. So there's still a mystery about it. It's not overly explained and it helps the atmosphere created by this film. You don't really know if it's a witch, if someone is out there trying to scare them. These are questions that are brought up by the cast themselves during the movie. There's a theory amongst fans that Mikey and Josh, they went mad and conspired to kill Heather because she's the one who got them lost. And there was a very entertaining theory that was completely eradicated from speculation when they released a toy of the witch, which canonizes the witch itself. But even before that, in 1999, the year of this film's release, there was also a comic book that was released that also tells you that the witch is in fact real. But you know, the comic book could have been dismissed. Not everybody who watches films is gonna read the comics. But yeah, you know, they released the toy and they told you this is how the witch looks. The ending of the film is something I really enjoy. Heather and Mikey hear a voice that sounds a lot like Josh's voice. So then they begin to follow this voice and they come across a house deep in the woods that was actually mentioned by two of the locals. In addition to the witch, there was also another story floating around Burkittsville about a serial killer named Mr. Parker who would take children back to his home and murder them. So as they're following the voice, Mikey heads down to the basement and then gets whacked. And not far behind was Heather. And when Heather enters the basement, Mikey is now standing in the corner. So Mikey standing in the corner actually correlates to the story of Mr. Parker. So one of the locals said that Parker mentioned in court that he didn't like the children staring at him while he killed them. So what he did was he would take one child, face him into the corner while he proceeded to murder the other one. So to end the film, Heather simply gets whacked. And that was it. Just a nice, vague ending that keeps the mystery of the Blair Witch alive. As I mentioned before, I love this film. I only have about 2 nitpicks. One of them would be that the anger setting in the characters came a bit too early. I would have liked for there to be more of the witch activity before they actually started getting angry. And the second one would be the ending, towards the ending, when Heather is running into the basement. So when she's running into the basement, she's screaming, but her voice sounds very, very distant. And you can tell that she wasn't the one holding the camera. Other than that, to me, this film holds up. If you're someone who enjoys watching those paranormal investigative shows, I would think that you would probably enjoy this film because it's not too dissimilar to that. Right down to the interviews of locals and asking them about the lore. And if you're a horror fan, you know that there is certain films in the genre that you watch simply for its reputation and to pay respects to it. And this is definitely one of those films. Hi everyone, I'm the Tinysapien Alvee. If you enjoyed what you just watched, leave a like, hit the subscribe, and if you want more, click the notification bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video. Thanks for watching and thank you for your time.